can even then corner some of these big guys, the organizations, SANCB, BlindSA itself, you named them all earlier, even guide dogs, get them in. And, you know, I think we should roast them from time to time so that they just understand that we want them to do better. And that we are there to assist them so that they can do better. I feel that we have a lot of outside knowledge in the real world out there, where we are making our bread every day, and that we can, you know, assist them to be more accessible so that they, at the end of the day, can serve those that can't do it for themselves. So this is something we really have to start thinking about. Pro ideas out there in media, and we will meet up at some point.
Very true. Thank you, Eugene. Sorry.
You sound as if you are on the mountains, Ariana.
I'm very sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
Yes. Do we have any feedback from Dick?
Dick will be joining at 3:30, and Michael is in the meeting. Just so you know.
Let's take Michael, and we will, after Michael, do Dick. Michael Snellenberg, good afternoon.
Hey, Eugene. Thanks for the invite. Great pleasure to be here.
Michael, I said this the whole day. I have no words to introduce you, and especially you. I'm going to leave this to you to introduce yourself, the journey, the things. I know too much, so I won't say much. But Michael, thank you very much for joining us. We have individuals here that know you. We have Swys Neetling, Andre Neetling. You will remember them. They are part of our meeting today. Unfortunately, our friends from BlindSA is still busy somewhere else, so we lost out on them. But can I ask you to tell us about you, your journey, your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eugene. What an honor to be here, and what a nice pleasure to share some time with people you know and that you've gone to school with and started a journey on. Yeah, so, you know, in short, for those who don't know me, I'm Michael Snellenberg, and I'm obviously originally from South Africa. My accent might have changed a little bit over the years when I talk English, I'm not sure. But I'm actually Afrikaans speaking. That's my first language. And then, you know, moved to the US in 2000. My background really has been that I've attended the Pioneer School. And, you know, when I mention that, I want to say that, you know, I'm very thankful for people that dedicate their lives to giving us opportunities to learn and to develop our skills and our talents. It's a big deal. And, you know, I also want to thank everybody on this call for the amazing work that you're doing in the field. I think, you know, a lot of you work very hard behind the scenes, and you know, some of the things that we do never get recognized, and that's okay. You know, it's not about recognition, it's about really you know, doing the work and serving others. But very thankful for everybody here doing the great work, and you know, I'm just glad to be a participant with a greater community that's you know, taking the world from disabled to enabled. And so with that, you know, after a late high school years, there were some people at the Pioneer School that started a computer programming course with Sanlam Bank. So, you know, there was organizations like Sanlam Bank that invested in giving us as kids with low vision and who's blind the opportunity to get access to a mainframe system to start playing with code and computers and that kind of thing. And then of course some of those people I remember was Mr. Potgieter, and I believe Chris de Klerk was involved as well at one point. But anyway, that's kind of where my computer journey started, and my interest in technology is being exposed to and introduced to a screen reader, for example, for the first time, and the Braille printer and that kind of thing. So we're talking about 1989, 1990. So what is that? 30 odd years ago. And so really got interested in the space, but more from a programming perspective. I wanted to learn about programming, what it was about. I was just curious about it. And so directly after high school, I tried to attend the Technikon of Pretoria in a information technology diploma, and it was incredibly hard to navigate and to attend class. And so I tried it out, didn't work for me. And then Martus de Bruin told me about Technikon SA at the time, which is now integrated into the University of South Africa, or UNISA as we know it. And so I changed over to SA Technikon, and I pursued the computer data processing, or what is known as information technology diploma. And at the time, the books and stuff wasn't even available in Braille or audio or whatever. So I was very privileged that my dad could afford buying me some assistive tech to get into the course and to be able to convert these books to Braille. So he bought me a scanner and had a Braille printer. Still had the Duxbury printing software at the time to convert these textbooks to Braille. And my mom actually was the one that probably knew more about information technology than I did by the end of that diploma, because she scanned all those books in and edited all the inaccurate optical character recognition that was happening, through the transformation process and so on. But graduated there and got the diploma, and then started in government in South Africa, working as a systems analyst. And at the time, the role of the system analyst there was just really to look at processes and systems and do process improvement, and then automate that through implementing software designs and that kind of thing. So at the time, I wasn't really actively programming, but I was working with the programming team to function in that way. And then 2 years in, I moved from the Department of Housing to the Department of Agriculture, and started getting into programming more as a daily thing. And of course, using the screen reader. My first screen reader was actually a Pro S4000, if anybody could remember that. It's a full length. It's a full length card that you plug into the PC slot, and then you install some software. And you can actually use a screen reader on a DOS-based system. But anyway, by the time I graduated and got into programming, I think we were where PC computing came to Windows 95. Anyway, we can stay on history for a long time, but that's just kind of to give you an idea of where it started. And by the end of 1997, I had a good friend whose dad wanted him to see the States, and he said take a friend with, and I got invited to come with. And the first time that I ever traveled, I guess to the US, and just loved the opportunities, and I just saw how open people were to people with disabilities, and just saw the place where I thought I needed to be. And so went back after a 10-day trip here and was just psyched. I was like, yes, this is something I'd like to explore. But especially, just coming through, growing up in apartheid, going through a democracy, and all of that, and then coming here and experiencing the freedom that everybody talks about, and the reality of that was a very big thing to me at the time. And so I started pursuing an H-1B or working visa to come to the United States, and to be able to get that visa, you had to have a job sponsor. And so I started looking for that, and finally, were able to get all of that in place, and then move to the United States. And for somebody that wants to move internationally, it is a pretty big transition, in the sense of things work differently, systems work differently. There's all kinds of really cool stuff to explore and learn and discover. So anyway, but the professional path started with GlaxoSmithKline, who's a big medical company, and they took me on as a visual, a basic.net or a VB.net software engineer, and started doing consulting there. And at the time, of course, just using JAWS as a screen reader. So I transitioned from the older Pros 4000 to JAWS once we got onto Windows. And so JAWS is, like everybody knows, it's a very nice screen reader that runs on Windows. So went through that as a consultant for about 10 years, just doing different consulting gigs, and just really being in cutting edge technologies. Microsoft's .NET platform at the time just started coming in, and like I said, I started on VB.net and learning that, and really getting through the barriers, things like how do you design a user interface if you can't see, and that type of stuff. And really just bulldozing through a lot of those things, and having very, very gracious people around me that was willing to share and come up with brilliant ideas. And then moving on around 2008, there was a significant change in my life and my career. I moved back to South Africa for a year and a half. I got married later in life to a beautiful lady, Mirka. And we started our journey and went back to South Africa for a year and a half. And at that time, even with, about 9 years experience in the software industry, I couldn't find any work. I did a few small consulting gigs for a friend, and just realized that the opportunities and the ability to find work wasn't in South Africa for me at the time. Now everybody's journey is different. And I realized this is really where I needed to be. So me and Mirka moved back. We ended up in Nashville, Tennessee, where we live today, which is also known as Music City. And so I started a job with a company called Inmar Intelligence. And they really specialize in reverse logistics. And it's just a fancy word for the returning of products, but they do almost anything. They do, they do healthcare industry, so they schedule drugs and all that stuff. And so while there, I was actually hired by ex-South African by the name of Brian Rogers, who I'm very thankful to. Brian started coaching me in developing my leadership skills and my management skills. He saw that I had the ability to lead and manage software and test engineering teams, and he started coaching me and offered me the opportunity. And so that was where I started managing people, which really is the most satisfying thing that I've experienced in my career. I do believe that everything is about people, and with a focus on people, I think we can get a lot of progress and a lot of things done in a very positive way. But anyway, as a manager, I started having the opportunity to influence how we do business, and I started becoming aware in about 2017 of many new job titles popping up in the IT industry, in the software industry, that actually had the word accessibility in the job title. And I really got excited about it, and I understood that I've been involved in accessibility all my career without even realizing it. The word accessibility was never a thing. But anyway, I started looking for certification because I wanted to learn more about this accessibility space, and found actually one company at the time, or one organization at the time in Atlanta, Georgia, by the name of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And they offered at the time 2 certifications, core competencies in accessibility, and I think the other one was web accessibility specialist. And I started diving in, and I really started just working through all the training and material that they had, and it was amazing. It was a turning point for me in my career, because at the time I was doing this consulting work and I was all over the place, right? Until I became a manager, then I'll be coding services, then I'll be in databases and be writing SQL, and then you'll be in the UI and trying to develop UIs, and then you're on the web, and then you're in mobile, and it's just all over the place. And really felt like a jack of all trades and a master of none, and didn't really understand what my journey was for and what it was about, until I discovered this accessibility thing. And then I realized all of this stuff was preparation to really focus on accessibility, and to learn about the space, all the different kinds of disabilities and the needs. And so after completing both of the certifications with IAAP, I was told that I was the 265th person in the world to become a certified professional in web accessibility. And I'm not saying that because I think it's special. I'm saying that to indicate to you that in 2017, how young accessibility was out there, and not to say that the IAAP certifications is the only qualifications of importance in the space, but at that point, it just seemed like accessibility is now really getting established and formalized and recognized within the industry. So after doing those certifications, I started looking at accessibility jobs, and I really wanted to change from being a software engineering manager to being an accessibility specialist. And I found LinkedIn, which is I think most of us know LinkedIn. It's really a very nice platform for people in different professions to connect and to share and so on. And saw this job that was advertised at Amazon, specifically Amazon Web Services, which is the cloud platform that Amazon uses, to host anything and everything technology. And so the job really was about establishing an accessibility program from the ground up. And I looked at this job description, and it was like it was like written for me. So I just realized that this is probably the thing that I've been working towards, and started interviewing for the job. And at the time, Amazon probably had a cycle of 5 to 6 interviews before you are brought in. And so took about a month to get through the interviews, and the last interview was intense. It was probably about 5 hours, and they rotate you through a team of 5 to 6 people, and they change every hour. And they really have a high bar for hiring. And so I was really honored to be able to then start my journey in accessibility and get in as a accessibility professional. The greatest challenge and opportunity, I believe, was how do you implement accessibility in a global enterprise that spans many different disciplines, many different job roles, many different product types. And at the time I was really asked to establish the program within the AWS training and certification context, which, if you think about it, when you work for a global company, your audience is global, and those that need training and certification are global. So you deal with all the complexities of local, different languages, different cultures, different laws, and that kind of thing. And so I really started looking at some of the other programs within that context, and how these programs were put together, how people think about scaling and doing things at scale. And it's been a fantastic learning school, and a wonderful honor to be able to dive in and be given the opportunity to learn about scaling and accessibility. And so just talking a little bit more about accessibility and the things that I've learned. I do believe that it starts with you, and all of us are unique in how we are skilled, our talents, our gifts. And I think a lot of people tend to look out at all these titles and these crazy opportunities, and they like, how do I get there? Well, my advice for you is that you are unique, and you bring things into a team, into an organization, into a space that only you can do in that way. And I think what I've learned is start with what you've been given. Don't look 10 miles ahead or 50 miles ahead. Start with where you're at and take care of business in the space where you're at. Learn what you can, especially learn from others, and give what you've got to give. You've got a lot to give. Don't think that you don't have anything to give. Your life experience have taught you things with your unique situation that probably 99% of other people in the world has never experienced. So with that approach, I really just started learning from other people, how they do things, how they scale, how they implement programs. And I started thinking through approaching accessibility. And what I came up with from my learnings was really that we have to implement a scalable, sustainable accessibility strategy, and then come up with a tactile plan to actually roll that out. And so to do that at scale, and I'm not really talking to you from an AWS perspective, I'm just talking to you about accessibility and accessibility programming in general. But really coming up with a sustainable strategy is to adopt accessibility into everything we do. And how do you change that culture? How do you change a big machine, a global organization culture, from bolting accessibility onto the right of the product development lifecycle to really shifting it to the left and including it in everything? And then that's the one question. The other question is, how do you work on new products, and what do you do for legacy products and sustaining that? And so what came up for me was that was a concept that we call born accessible. And so this born accessible strategy is really where we started a methodology, looking at a methodology to analyze the product development life cycle. So first of all, what are the phases in the life cycle for each of these products and product teams? What are the roles involved in each of the cycles, and what tooling do they use? And then most importantly, what is it they deliver? And then once you've identified that, really looking at the role, the function they in, and how to help equip them to deliver accessible in that role. So we started developing accessibility processes and practices that applies to each of those things: the role, the tooling, and what's being delivered, right? And most of it is really digital. So a lot of the things that we talk about here today, like tooling and so on, is obviously something that we can bring into the process to help us as one of those practices or processes. But speaking in general, you've got your planning phase where you really want leadership to take in consideration people with disabilities and include them in anything they do, and positioning that in planning is to include your personas with disability particulars, and identifying them and their needs. We've got these industry standards which are fantastic, like WCAG and the CVAA and all kinds of things, but those are guidelines, and they a very solid foundation to start from, but it's not the say all be all. It's a fantastic point to enter, and it's a fantastic point to start. But really what we want to do is we want to look at what our customers need. And, if you know anything about Amazon, the thing that this company is about is customer obsession. And if we're going to be customer obsessed, we're also going to be customer obsessed about our customers with disabilities. And so including customers with disabilities is really the most significant thing that any product owner or project manager should take into consideration. And working with personas with disability particulars is a very significant best practice when you plan. Another thing is to set clear goals, right? You want to make sure that you include your accessibility bar, and we can talk about the accessibility bar a little bit. For now, think about it as WCAG or the guidelines. That's your bar. But we really want to include that in our definition of done. So when you function in the agile project and product development life cycle, a lot of agile teams have what they call the definition of done. You want to make sure that accessibility bar is included in the definition of done. Why? Well, because it then makes the development team and the product team consistently aware and remind them that there are people with disabilities that need to be included, and there's an accessibility bar that you need to implement, test for, validate to be able to launch accessible. So, Eugene, I don't know where we are on time, but that's just touching the planning phase. When we look at design, specifically customer experience. We want to design customer experience that people with disabilities have the same delightful experience as anybody else. And so when we design anything, we would design with our customers with disabilities in mind. What do they require? What's their needs? And so when we look at actually UX design, there's so many design systems today, but I think it's critical that your design system of choice include accessibility features, right? We want to make sure that we identify the role of a UI element. Is it a button? Is it, we want to make sure that it's got a contextual, meaningful name. We want to make sure that it has values that report the state of the element, that kind of thing. And then we want to design and we want to use accessibility notation that communicates these things in the designs. And once those things are included, it's also a communication tool to our development team and our developers in how to implement that UI in an accessible way. We want to make sure we review these designs and make sure that they are actually completed before handing it off to our developers in an accessible way. So, as you can see, me walking through these different phases, it's really incorporate accessibility into the product development lifecycle, into every little phase, and to help each of the roles to implement accessibility. Now, when we get to development, which I think is what a lot of us talk about here today, and we think about tooling, you want to make sure that your developers are equipped and that they have the tools to actually help them deliver accessible. When you code, include a linter in your development environment and within your project. A code linter is something that will identify accessibility gaps while you code. So again, shifting left, help the developer as soon as possible, as early as possible in his process to be equipped to deliver accessible. There's other tools that you can give your developers that actually test their code, help them test their code for accessibility before they check their code into their source code environment. And then, there's regression tools that we can implement to make sure that we identify any gaps in the production environment, and so we don't regress our code. And we're mixing the conversation a little bit here because development and QA kind of goes together. But I know a lot of the accessibility practitioners on the call today are really focused on testing, validation, and those kind of things, which is very important. And I believe it's one of the most prominent, I want to call it checkpoints or gates in our development process to deliver accessible, right? And the last piece of the puzzle for me in the flow of this life cycle is really to make sure when we publish that we check all the points, right? If we have a checkpoint at the publishing point or where we release code or software, we want to make sure that validates as accessible at that point. And if it doesn't, we have to block the release. If there's critical blockers, we want to block the release. Now, there's different companies that have different policies when it comes to that. At the end of the day, accessibility is a journey, and we iterate. We keep on improving the experience, but we don't regress the experience. And that's kind of the strategy behind that cycle. Now, for legacy products, we definitely have a mechanism that we can use that determines the state of accessibility of a product in a specific point in time, right? And that's where we can implement audits and follow a remediation process. So if a product is legacy, it doesn't undergo any kind of maintenance or new features being built in, it's probably never going to go through that product development lifecycle that we're talking about. It's more going to go through a phase of audit and remediation. And that cannot be sustained in a new product lifecycle. But it could be something that you could use when you have a legacy product. So doing an audit, coming up with the gaps, and then building a roadmap for your development team and prioritizing what needs to be remediated and bringing it up to bar, right? So, Eugene, I'll stop there for now. And
thank you, Michael. I don't know how much time you have. If we can continue this a little bit later, I just have two very quick things. Welcome to our associates from Scotland, Dig Inclusion. Michael, this is something that will definitely interest you. Dig Inclusion have a product called Hugger. I do not want to say too much about the product, other than just introduce the team to quickly tell us about their product and how Hugger really busy changing the world. This is a fantastic tool. It's reusable. It is. We just talked about reporting, to your development team. Earlier, we talked about the clarity of the language, and these type of things. And your reporting tool is to me, just because I'm a tester anyway, is such an important thing. So if Michael, if you will give us a couple of minutes just to showcase this fantastic tool, and then I would love your comments afterwards. And then just before I give it over to you, Nish and Callum, we also have a fantastic person that just joined us, Christo de Klerk. He's the Vice President of BlindSA. I do know that he have an additional appointment at 4:30, but we are a little bit behind schedule, and I really hope, Christo, that we can just get a word of you also later on, even if we have to go on a little bit later. Welcome, Dig. What a privilege for me to have. It's the first time I can say I'm part of this team as well. I feel at home. So welcome, Nish, or is it Callum?
So we've got Callum and Darius.
Darius, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Callum, and welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us here today. I think we can just start by giving a bit of an overview of what Hugger is, before we kind of get into a little bit of a demo. So what is Hugger then? So Hugger is a tool that aims to essentially democratize accessibility testing as much as possible. So what do we mean by that? So that's about making accessibility testing something that people with varying experience can pick up and get to a quality output. So, for example, here in the UK, something that we're seeing in certain teams is accessibility testing being assigned to QA testers as a new part of their role. And so, obviously, we are seeing a huge variety in confidence levels and experience there. And so Hugger aims to be a tool that they can pick up and follow a guided process as much as possible, to work through kind of systematically conducting their testing. Not only that, though, as mentioned previously, we don't want to just make this a box ticking exercise. So it's not just about people working through a list, ticking things off and kind of doing the minimum. What we're also looking to do is educate people as we go. So we talk about, not only how to test issues, but also how what impact those issues would have on end users, and specifically, what kinds of people are most affected by those particular issues. Hugger is really split into kind of two main user kind of profiles. So we've got the tester view, which is really set up around obviously hands-on testing. So working through the product in your kind of offering. And we also have the manager view, or sort of the more high-level organization view, which really aggregates all of the testing data that we have captured through the testers, and it begins to kind of call out patterns in what we're seeing. So, for instance, how compliant are the various products in our digital estate at a high level, and then we can also see from a regulatory perspective, where are we at risk? Obviously, a lot of these regulations and legislation, they come with fines associated with those, and obviously reputational damage and all of these things. So we want to flag to organizations where are there kind of vulnerabilities. Other things that we're looking at as well, so the distribution of the issues across your digital estate. Is there a particular concentration of issues in a certain product, in a certain part of a product? Is there a concentration of issues within a particular part of WCAG? So there might be a certain kind of issue that we're seeing time and time again, and that helps you to address that and look at ways that you might want to stop that issue becoming so frequent. In terms of managers, then sort of the key proposition points that we have are that aggregated real-time view. So I think, as well, going back to the previous point, we don't want accessibility to testing to be viewed as something you maybe do once every few months. This aims to be kind of to sit alongside sprints. So you're always testing. It's little and often, and that provides that real-time compliance view across all of your digital tools. In terms of other functionality that we're looking at, so things like integration with products like Jira, so having that two-way communication so that any issues identified can be actioned, and when they are actioned, that's automatically reflected back into Hugger. So you can also see how effectively your team is not only identifying issues, but also fixing those issues, and you can track the kind of delta of that over time. Other things that we're looking at, so accessibility statement generation, so one-click statement generation. For the testers, we look at using reusable components. So if you're working in a large team and say you have a component, extremely simple example might be a button or a form field. You can essentially test that thing once, and that can just be applied to any future pages that component appears on. So you don't have to retest that every single time. And yeah, so that's kind of a whistle-stop tour. Hopefully, when I hand over to Darius, that should hopefully bring some of what I've said to life a little bit. And yeah, and then we can just open up for any questions. So thanks very much.
Hello. I'll just quickly share my screen.
Thank you, Callum. Yeah, Darius, we are eager to see.
So yeah, for a little background, this comes from Dig Inclusion. Originally, we were auditing, as most people do, with spreadsheets and Word documents, which is slow, repetitive. So this is where we started to develop this, and this is what it's come to after many years. So we've got a dashboard which will show your recent assessments. These are things you're currently working on in general. So you can just have quick access to these things. Or we've got the assessments tab, which will show everything you have access to, either yours or within your team. So in an assessment or a report, then we've got three sort of groupings here. We've got pages, components, and journeys. A page would be any sort of individual screen, a web page specifically, so a home page or contact page, that sort of thing. And then we've got components. So this is anything that is duplicated identically across multiple pages. This is so that we can test certain things once and then not have to test those again. So, for example, we'll usually split out stuff like headers and footers into this. Because they are the same across every page, we can just test them once and speed things up massively there. We've also then got user journeys. So this would just be sort of a grouping of pages or components that flow through a site. This is so that we can see certain specific journeys and how accessible they are relative to other sorts of bits. So we can add a page just by giving it a unique name. So if we just give it the contact page, for example, we can give it a URL here. So we just use the Dig Inclusion website. So yeah, that's the Dig Inclusion URL, and then we can give it a title. We'll try and pull in a title, or we can update it ourselves. So this will be the actual title in the page. This will help us test later on as well, and then we can use a screenshot. This is just to help us keep track of what the page looked like, obviously in case there's any changes, or just to refer back to. So from there, we can go into the page, and we've got some details along the left. So we got the page title, the URL, the date it was created, who it's created by, all that sort of details, which user journeys this page is in, if any, and which components are on this page. On the right, we've got all of our checks. So this is configurable, but in this instance follows the workout criteria. So we've got, for example, 1.1.1 to start with, followed by 1.2.2.1. We've split some into A and B just to help us differentiate certain things. So like 1.3.1 is quite a large criterion that will have many different issues. So we try and split that into stuff like headings, lists, tables separately, just so we can keep track of things easier. So from here, we've got the option to just quickly parse it if it's something that we know isn't a problem. We've got not applicable. So for a lot of time-based media stuff, if there's no time-based media on a website, we can just quickly click through and mark these as not applicable. And then we've got the begin button. So that's to begin the check properly. In here, we've got the option to show guidance. So if you click this, the left-hand side changes to our guidance page. This will help somebody that's either new to testing or just wants to quickly check on something. How to test it, what to look for, what the requirements are, success criteria, that sort of thing. From there, we can select an outcome. So we've got the options of pass, fail, advisory, not applicable, or to do. So we differentiate fail and advisory. So advisory will be anything that isn't a workout fail specifically, but we'll also use, when we're testing, to AA, AAA things maybe put in as an advisory, just to basically help our clients go above and beyond if they need to. So if we mark this as a fail, we've then got the option to add a new issue. So from here, this will suggest, we have this thing called issue templates. So the issue templates are sort of descriptions and details around an issue that you can reuse. This speeds up the process a lot. So for example, in 1.1.1, quite often there's content images don't have appropriate alt. There's a couple of different things, but they're quite common. So we have all that information already, so you don't have to write it out lots of times. It will suggest the best issues that we have that fit under the criteria that you're testing. So in 1.1.1, it will suggest these ones. So if we pick this one, this is content images don't have appropriate alt text. It will then give us an identifier. So this is how we'll refer to this issue later on if we need to share it, discuss it, any that sort of thing. We've got severity. So this is obviously not perfect, but will generally be how severe this issue usually is on a website. So for this one, we put it as high. And then priority, which sort of matches to severity, but can be changed later. So you may have a low severity issue that is quite an easy fix or is used a lot across the site, so will have a high impact. So you can set priority to higher if you needed to for that sort of thing. Description then, this is just to give more details about the specific instance. Obviously, you don't need to go into a lot of what alt text is or how it, that sort of what effect it has on the user, because that is already in the issue template. This is more to just say which specific issue it is. So describe the image, where the image is, and then maybe give some more details if it should be a specific, if you're suggesting it should be a specific different thing. So for example, we can go the logo image in the header has some alt text. We can then say which page this is on. So I've given this as a bad example because the header would usually be done as a component, but we'll pretend that we are. You can then, obviously you're testing on the contact page, so it will suggest that one already, but you can then add it to multiple pages. So we can add in the home page as well if we need to. We've then got the platform. So in general, as it's an accessibility issue, it's usually going to be across all browsers. However, if there's a specific bug that is on a specific browser, we can specify that here. And also when you're doing mobile testing, you've got options to show mobile, Android, iOS, that sort of thing. Big web. We then have solutions. So these are the general solutions that would fit with this issue. So obviously they're not going to be specific, but there'll be an example of what it shouldn't be, an example of what it should be. I can show you that a little bit later. You can pick one or more. So in this instance, the first one would be to ensure alt attributes are provided, and then ensure alt attributes accurately describe the image. So we can select those two. Oh, and there's also one for logo, so we can select all three. We can then give screenshot of the image, so that would just be a matter of taking a screenshot, either pasting it in or uploading it, and then we can add that issue. So then that's showing us this check is done. The cell is moved to fail once you've closed it, so you can just see the ones that you need to work on from there. If I then go into this issue, so this is all the details around the issue. Here we've got the description on the left, the WCAG references, the affected users, and the impact on users. So this is the stuff that will come from the issue template. So it will show in the report, but obviously we haven't had to write this. This is already given for us. So it speeds things up massively. We've then got which pages it's found on, the screenshot if added, and the description you've given, that sort of thing. You can also then add a comment. So if we're discussing this image, if we're retesting it, we can leave any comments to keep a track of what's happened. We've got the status. So this would be your general sort of bug tracking sort of features. So we've got reported, closed, removed, closed, fixed, fixes in progress, or to retest. And we've got a QA status if we're doing QA on this report. When this is a report on a team, you will also have which user this is assigned to. So you can assign it to a specific person, either to retest or to fix. What other things we've got here? We've got obviously showing the severity and the priority. And then we can mark this as a key issue. So when we're doing reports, if there's either something that's, you know, a big deal breaker or happens quite a lot, we can mark key issues just so that when we give this report to a developer or any other sort of stakeholders, they can see which issues are the bigger things to look at.
That is now the priority of the severity of the actual issue that you're referring to.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I mean, you just referred to this function that you have there. That is the priority or the severity level of the actual issue.
Yeah, so here we've got severity. So this is the one that's fixed to the issue template. So this, anytime you use this content images don't have appropriate alt text, it will be high. Obviously, this isn't perfect. So you may have it somewhere where it could be a critical issue. You may have other places where it's not really that relevant, so could be considered lower. But in general, this type of issue would usually be considered high. These do change. We do discuss them frequently. So then priority is sort of the priority within your team, essentially. So if I click edit on here, we can edit all these details, and we've then got the choice to change this to, so for example, you may say, we consider this to be a bigger issue. We can set this to the highest priority, and then sort of it just prompts that for a quicker fix type of thing.
Yeah. Darius, we are running out of time. They are going to kick us out, but I have two very important things to ask you before we have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, this Hugger, how accessible is Hugger to especially users with screen readers?
So yes, it's pretty accessible. We obviously, sorry, it's a constantly evolving tool. So we do have our issues. However, it is designed to be fully accessible to all screen reader users. One of our testers within Dig is blind and uses this on a daily basis. So anytime there is an issue that creeps in, we find out about it pretty quickly and it gets fixed.
It's me too. I'm also using it every day.
How are you finding it?
No, that's all I'm using nowadays. I don't use other. I'm at DHS Trusted Tester on ACR, and I moved over to Hugger. I don't use anything else.
Ah, excellent.
Perfect. Darius, the last question. What's the price?
I'll pass back to Callum for that one, I think.
Yeah, so that's probably one that we could pick up offline. I think we're still kind of in the early stages, so we have some pricing details that we're just kind of ironing out. So I can maybe follow up with you separately offline if that's okay.
We can do that definitely later. Guys, thank you so much for taking your time, for waiting for us. Michael, do you have any questions about Hugger? Michael is a senior product manager at Amazon Web Services. I think Michael is muted. No, we are not going to have time to take that comments. Darius, Callum, thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. We really appreciate this, and we will definitely have to do a follow-up. I still need to talk to you about all these different questions down the spreadsheet to showcase how your actual criteria levels pinpoint accessibility issues, but and then how the end report look. So if we can at some point, I would really love to do this completely to get but I will definitely contact you so that we can get this on video. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Great. Yeah, thanks again for having us.
Eugene, sorry, I
yes,
found
Michael.
I found my mute button.
Hello, Michael.
Well, I just want to congratulate Hugger on a wonderful initiative and the great work you're doing. I think you hit a lot of the sweet spots and what people need, in determining the state of accessibility for their products. And I especially love the fact that you embrace the user journey and break it down into pages and components. And then, of course, one of my most passionate things is to be able to scale. So I love the way you approach scaling through addressing a component that's common to many pages. So just a few remarks there, and just again, thanks for everything you do for the industry and for helping us to bring accessibility up to a delightful bar.
I like
Great.
that
Thanks
one.
very much, Michael.
Delightful bar. I love it. Thank you. Are there anybody that still have some questions or comments for Michael that we have missed, or do anybody have a specific question for the team of Dig, for Hugger, about Hugger?
Eugene, sorry, yeah. For Michael, I just want to check and find out the accessibility field and the awareness of it in the USA. and you know South Africa now. So within South Africa and Africa itself, is it better? Is it more wider spread? Is it easier for a visually impaired person in the US or not necessarily?
That's a great question. I mean, if you talk about the accessibility field, it's very deep and wide. But you know, your question at the end hints at, you know, is the environment more accessible in the US than in other countries? That's hard to say because I've not been in that many countries. You know, I've been in South Africa, I've been to the UK, and of course I've been all over the US. I will just say that there is a tremendous exponential momentum around accessibility and the awareness of accessibility. I live in the US and I'm more aware of, you know, the US, but especially Europe as well. And if you look at the latest developments that's been published, it's public knowledge in what is happening in the EU as well as in the United States governments, and what they're putting forward and putting out as what needs to be accessible. It's very, very clear that those in authority are taking action and really implementing the measures and the things that's needed to keep on improving the environments and the offerings for people with disabilities. So I hope that kind of answers your question,
Yes,
Francois. I don't know if
yes,
you have. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Guys, I'm so sorry. We are going to do this again. The time has come. They are throwing me out of the building. It's closing time. It's 4:30 here in South Africa, Michael. The guys want to go home. So I firstly want to each and every one of you that attended today's event, thank you very much. We are going to have all of the content here in smaller cut videos up on BlindSA's YouTube channel, and obviously on the Antoinette Botha Brown Museum channel, so that you can do this again. And please comment and let us build on this. We definitely should have more talks like this. Michael, your mentoring, I'm pretty sure mean a lot to me and a lot of other people. We need to keep the conversation going. I will be in touch, and I think we must make this something, you know, let it grow, and let's talk. To Philip, Jordan, Jace, the CEO of BlindSA, all your staff, everybody else that attended today and made this happen, thank you so much. I'm humbled, coming from a very small town. I need to wrap up. They're going to kick me out. So thank you so much. Is Christo
Thanks for
here?
the opportunity.
Christo, did you come back? Do we have Christo de Klerk?
Yes.
We stop this. Don't lock the doors. Don't lock the doors. It's going to go on longer right now.
I also just have a few minutes before I need to go into my next meeting. First of all, to all of those who arranged this, thank you so much. The bit I heard was extremely interesting, and I'm glad I will be able to hear the rest. But yes, this must be spread far and wide. I apologize for having joined so late, but I had to attend another event, a very, very interesting one, and it's directly connected to this sort of thing. ABSA has held today what it called its Accessibility Day, and it is the third one they had. They are really committed to making their platforms accessible. What they did today was to train analysts to build in accessibility into their platforms. Now, the way they did that was that the analysts would design a banking app, and they had the developers there who would develop according to the design specifications, and then we, the blind people there, would then test those for accessibility. We would point out issues, and that would then be referred back to the developers and the analysts so that they could improve them, and then we would check again. As I say, it was their first one, third one already, and they are having another one.
So this was one of those. Sorry about that.
Yes, no, go.
Landscape.
Yes, no.
No, continue, Christo.
I thought you were wanting to ask something. Oh,
I was going to, but things just happened. Yes, the way of testing, I just want to pinpoint this. Did they give you a set of instructions or specifics where they want you to test on a specific journey?
they would, for example, say, make a payment of 100 Rand to Mr. Mokwena and give us your feedback on what you find, that sort of thing.
So journey based, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, that was really excellent. So because Accessible ICT is my portfolio and BlindSA's advocacy committee, I had to attend that, and I've also attended the previous two. So I'm quite excited about that also. But very well done to all of you. Thank you very much. I have to duck now to log on to Teams again in another meeting. But keep up the good work, and let's all keep in touch. I just want to mention one additional thing before I go. I am so immensely proud because two of my ex-learners from school have made major contributions here today. Those are Eugene and Michael. I taught them the beginnings of computers at Pioneer School when they were at school. I'm proud of you guys, so well done, and it's I must say I would not have recognized Michael's voice in 1,000 years. He sounds totally different. His voice hadn't broken last when I heard him. But really well done, guys, and thank you for putting all this together, Eugene. And on that note, I wish you a pleasant evening or whatever time of the day it is in your part of the world. Keep well and keep up the accessibility stuff.
Just before you go, how could we do anything else if we had a teacher like you? Thank you so much for your contribution. As we celebrate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time. I'm so sad to go, but Michael, thank you.
Yes, Eugene, thanks for the opportunity. I know Chris had just left, but yeah, I thanked him earlier. I think he wasn't on. Yes, there's a lot that we can do in our immediate circumstances and our roles, and I'll just encourage you to do what you have at hand to do, and that's really all that matters. You know, don't try and move a mountain. You know, just take small bites and eat the elephant bite by bite.
Exactly. That's
Awesome.
what analysts do, bit by bit. Thank you for everybody. We will have the videos up and available soon for each and every contribution. Darius, you and your team, thank you so much for everybody, and have a good evening. Goodbye.
You too. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, dankie Eugene.
Thanks, Swys.
Thank
Jy
you,
moet
everybody.
ek moet jou nommer in die hande kry.
Swys, bly aan, dan gee ek op vir jou.
Goed.
Of kom ek gee my e-mailadres, is makliker. Dis net eugene@a11y.co.za. We will also have contact details in the chat here, so you can come back into this meeting at any point.
He says A11Y.
.co.za.
Oh, okay.
Dis net
Dis die
Eugene,
website. Okay.
Eugene@a11y.co.za.
Eugene.
Ja, EUGENE.
Gou pas oor. EU.
GE
Ja.
NE.
at A11.
Yeah. So if you send me an email, dan sal ek reply en my nommer is onder op die email. Dan kan jy hom daar kry en dan
We'll do
dis
that immediately.
dis die WhatsApp nommer wat daaronder is. En dan kan ons
Super.
glo man. Ja, meer as welkom Swys. Baie dankie
Super.
dat jy die hele dag uitgehou. Baie dankie. Ek waardeer dit so baie.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers, bye.